So this is pretty much all you need to do this whole thing. You need an iPad mini. This is the new one. You can use any one. They're all the same size as of now. Get a Macintosh case. You gotta gut it. I'm not gonna show you how to do that. There's a lot of videos that show how to get that done. And by the way, there's all those signatures on the inside, which are pretty cool. Macintosh Plus, any of them with this case body work. You'll need this frame to kind of mount the iPad mini. And then here's just some kind of various things you'll need. Nuts, bolts, we'll get into all this. Button. This push button's a little tricky. Sometimes it needs to be on all the time, but momentarily turn off. So when you press the button, it turns off. And when you release, it's on. It's connecting the current. So that's what it'll look like. It'll be on, and then in parentheses it should say off. So they're a little hard to find, but that's kind of what you're looking for. They're around. And then you also just need some wiring, solder, a Torx 15 I believe it is, just some basic tools like that. But that's about it to get started. So now we'll get started on kind of wiring up the charging cord to unlock the iPad. So the way this works is we're gonna solder this button, wire this button into the power line of the charging cord. So it's gonna have to be unlocked or plugged in to unlock it. All of the power will be running through the cord constantly through the button, so because the button's always on. But when you press it, it'll momentarily turn off, and then when you release it again, it'll be like it'll reconnect the power, and it's acting like the iPad's being plugged in, which basically lights it up so that you can then unlock it. So that's kind of how this all works. So we're gonna start the wiring process of this. So just you need the cord, a button, some needle nose are good to have, electrical tape, this knife, wiring stuff, soldering iron, some wire. I prefer just me personally, I don't know if this is best, but I prefer pretty small, what is it called, stiff wire, pretty small gauge though. So that's it, let's get to it. Begin by taking your X-Acto knife and just kind of cutting through the charger here. Just kind of get through that outer plastic, and you can sort of see there's like a metal kind of encasing around the wire inside, so you don't have to worry too much about cutting through the wire, because that metal will kind of protect it. And then maybe about a 6-inch strip is how big I did that, and maybe 6 inches from the end of the plug here too. So that's it. And then just cut a slit in the outer, rubbery part of the wire, and just start to peel it back, and just work your way until you got it all completely off. So when you get that whole section off, the whole outer white section off, you should have something that looks like this. I'm going to take your X-Acto knife and start to kind of cut through those that metal shielding a bit, and then just start to peel it up, those outer wires there, and then we'll just kind of unbraid it. Okay, so I want to try to show this off the best I can. So this is just kind of unbraiding it. So just take the back end of your X-Acto knife and just go kind of through it, put it up there, and then just pull out. And you'll just slowly start to go through and unbraid this whole wiring or this cable protection thing. So hopefully you can kind of see there what I'm doing, just putting the X-Acto knife in, using the back unsharp edge to unbraid it. And you inevitably cut some of it off, but it seems to work. So we're just going to work our way all the way down there, unbraiding it. So now I've got all the braiding off, you can see it's all there, and next is just this tinfoil layer, which is just kind of rolled on, and you just kind of pull that off. It's not a big deal, it comes right off. And then now this is the time when go plug your iPad in with this cord and make sure it all still works. You didn't screw anything up. So I'm going to go do that. Just tested mine and it works. Still charges, which is great. So next we're going to go through and unwind this and look for the... Sorry, this videoing is horrible. We're going to unwind and get the red cable there. That's the power cable that we're going to splice and put the button into. wire. Let's cut it in the middle there and get some shrink tube on here ready to go. So it's kind of bigger shrink tube you have to use to get over the lightning port head, but just slide that over there and then we'll use that later. Now we're going to need to remove the kind of exterior of the wire on this red wire here, and this is the worst part because this stuff is super stretchy. It's too small to really cut with a wire cutter stripper kind of thing. So I just kind of use my teeth and my fingernails and just work it and try to get it off. So best of luck to you. So you can see it just freaking stretches. It sucks. This is the worst to get off. So it's sort of coming, it's getting thin coming through right there. A trick that kind of helps a bit is to use your solder and just kind of heat it up, try to heat up that outer edge a little bit, outer coating, but don't overdo it. But if you heat it up, it kind of makes it a little brittle and you can kind of get it that way. So keep going, you got this. And that's why you give yourself some extra room here, because if you're like me, I just cut that thing off. I just bit off the whole wire, sort of. So look, yeah. So that whole thing came off. So you got to be careful. This is delicate, really small wiring. But luckily I have enough to do another try, maybe even a third try if I need to. So once you finally got that done, just twist the wire together and put some more shrink wrap on it. And next we're going to start wiring up the button. All right. Put that aside for now, and we're going to wire up to the button now. So get your button out and cut a couple of lengths of wire, maybe foot and a half or so. Give yourself enough room to reach the back of the Macintosh. Just don't cut it too short, and you can have extra length in there is fine. So let's do it. One end of the wire, however much off you want to do. I'm no soldering expert, but it's a fairly simple job. I'm not going to teach you how to solder in this. If you don't know how, just kind of look up another YouTube video. But just twist it around and we'll solder it to the end there. We'll do it for both the contacts. So I'll do that one and then that one with the different wires, of course. Okay. Got them both on there. Looks decent, works good enough for me. And then I'll just put some heat shrink wrap on there and call it a day for those. So once you got your button wired up and the shrink tube stuff all shrinked with the heat gun, now you're just going to want to mount the button first, because you're not going to be able to mount it afterwards, really. So I always use the existing hole in the back. You can put yours in the side, drill a new hole, or do whatever you want. I just use one of these round existing holes, put a washer around it to give it a little more width and stability, and then just pull it through. Put the wires through, feed the wires through, pull it through, and then just mount it on the other side. Your button should be mounted like that, and the wire is coming out and ready to use on this end. Next, we're going to wire up the button to the cord, to the power cord. So just strip the end of the yellow wire there, whatever wire color you have, and then just twist them together, and again, we'll solder for both of these on both ends. So I'll come back when they're done and soldered. So here it is all soldered, each one, each connection, and then now you just put the shrink wrap over it and we'll go test it. We got it plugged in and we'll test it now just to see if it works. You press the button and release and it turns on, it works. So you can see it's charging now. See, it's charging, and then now I'll press the button, holding it down, and it stops charging. And then when I release it, it starts charging again. So it's working. So cool. So I'll put the final slider heat shrink tube on, and we'll be done with this part. Woo! So I'll put these black ones on first. I heat shrink those ones already, and then I'll slide the yellow ones over, and then completely cover all of these wires too. Now and then I'll just wrap some electrical tape around it just to kind of seal it all up for good and make it super sturdy. Okay, so there it is. Got the tape on there and everything, and then now I will always just kind of go back, test it one more time, make sure it's all good, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Wow. Next we're going to mount our iPad, but before you do that, you need to make sure you set it up, because look, at least with the current iOS, iPad OS, the first thing it needs to do is press the home button to open, and we're not going to have access to the home button. So go through and start your whole setup process of your iPad. Okay, so once you have your iPad basically set up, we're going to move on to mounting it. So, about mounting. This is the frame kind of mount system that I've come up with and made. It's black acrylic, as you can see. This is just a protective covering, so we'll peel that off. But it's just black acrylic. I think it's 1/8 inch if I'm not mistaken. And I use this Epilogue laser over here to cut that out. So I'm going to try to have these for sale and have a link where you can buy them from me, and I'll ship it to you so you can make this. And maybe I'll try to get the file up too, so you can just do it yourself if you have a laser. But yeah, unfortunately, because the screen sizes just don't match up perfectly between the Macintosh and the iPad mini, so you need something like this. So I'll show you how to do it with this. So first, just peel this off, and then we'll get going from there. And we're gonna do we're gonna glue this foam sheet on here. So this is just a black foam sheet, really thin, that you can get at a craft store or whatever. And we're just gonna cut strips to put all along here and on these mounting strips on the back here. We'll attach them with hot glue, just to kind of give it some non-slip stuff and to make sure we don't scratch the iPad also. Okay, so I cut the foam and got it hot glued on here. Just do wide strips. Only got to do one side of all this stuff. So wide strips on these 2 strips, and then for the frame, only do the sides. You don't need to do the top because there's such small bevels on the iPad on the top, on these 2 sides anyway. And then put these pretty much, have some room on this inside edge so that you don't see the foam when we actually install it. So there you go. Do that. Now for the hardware you're going to need. These are the screws I use. Number 832 is everything that it seems to work good for this. But these are the screws. Gosh, I forget how long these are. Probably 1.5 inches, I'd say, is what they are. And then I just spray paint them black. You can use nail polish to get them black on the top, or whatever you want to use. Anything works. Just get them black. And then when you get your nuts, get nylon lock nuts too. Lock nuts work great, make this thing a lot more sturdy. So there you go. So this is how the whole mounting situation goes together. Frame goes down, then the iPad, then these kind of back, strips or whatever, and then the bolts go, all the way through up, and then the nuts go into the bolts, and then we'll tighten it down, and that's it. And when you're doing this stuff, be careful not to over tighten, because this is just plastic acrylic, so it can't crack. So you just want to get it snug and secure. So this can be a little tricky to do. So the easiest way I found is to just get a socket wrench, small one, put that underneath with a Phillips head, holding that, and then just take a socket on top and just turn your, use that on top and turn the nut with that. Seems to be the easiest way. Okay, so there we have it. It's all bolted down and stuff, not too tight, but snug. You can see it bends just a little bit. You can see it just a little bit, slight curvature there, but it's not overly tight. And there you go. We should have that now. So now we're getting ready to mount the iPad onto here. Let's see, like that, right? But in order for it to sit flush against down here, we need to trim off a bit of it. So we need to trim off these right here to that level. So they basically trim off that extra top little bit. You need to trim off all 4 of those, and trim off that too. So we'll do it, and while you're at it, cut off a couple of these too, so we have room for the wire. So we'll use a Dremel for that. So we're out here with the Dremel, and again, we'll just take this tool here, like this style, where you turn it on. You just go through and basically use this as a guide right here, and just go right through it. Cool? Just went right through it. There's the extra piece. And one tip is to have a bolt handy. So right after when you do these, screw the bolt in, because the Dremel kind of melts the plastic a little bit. And if you don't kind of screw that in when it's hot, it makes it tough to put them in later. So now I got a nice clean hole there. Got them all dremeled off now. Every corner's down. Got those two knocked off and that knocked off as well. Now you're just gonna attach the frame with the iPad onto the Macintosh body and just use the existing screws that, you know, were in the Macintosh when you first got it. And again, careful not to tighten these down too tight because you will crack the acrylic here. So just snug. And there you have it. Your iPad is attached to the front of your Mac. Now before we install the front of the Mac onto the back, we need to kind of modify this a little bit. So it's super tight in the case where this works, and there's not really enough room for it to make the turn. So what we're gonna do is just kind of cut off this so we can make a sharp L right after the lightning port. Just slice through the edge right there so it's kind of disconnected and makes a good right turn. And then just remove that little extra piece too so you can make a nice turn. That's it. Next, just plug it on in and run the USB cord out through the back. So just, you know, run it through any of these if you want to. And just pull it on through. There you have it. And then when you're attaching it, put the back on, and then when you put the screws in, you can't use these ones down here because the bracket inside is gone, but you use those ones up there which screw into the front, which I found to be enough to hold it because it's not very heavy in there. Okay, so it's done. We're testing it out now. I've got it plugged in back here. Cord's running in. And then here's the button, which I'll press. Kind of do have to press it for a second, but look, it already lit up. Jeez. So let it time out. Then look, I'll press the button. Lights up. And then you just swipe up to unlock it. So that's what it is. Just to kind of get around a little bit. It says open or press the home button to unlock when you first do it, but you can just swipe up like that. And then to kind of get from, you know, you operate it as you would a normal iPad, but like when you're opening apps and stuff like that, and so you can't press the home button to get home, so you just have to kind of pinch like that to get home. So you kind of have to use the extra like shortcuts. Unfortunately, sometimes it's difficult to hit like the extra little stuff that's going on. Oh gosh, see, it's all set up here. Like whatever that thing is from the bottom, swipe up stuff from the bottom or edges sometimes, but you know, you can get around pretty decent. And then yeah, just to close it, that thing always. And then this pulls up extra stuff. It's just an iPad. I don't need to go over this a bunch. So yeah, you gotta be quick with it. That's it. Make sure you turn off like the automatic brightness and all that kind of stuff too. And then also this background is just a little photo here. This hello thing, which is from the original Mac unveiling or whatever. So I don't know, I'll have that up for you guys to grab somewhere because it looks pretty cool, I think, to have that on there. So that's it. It's all done. And then to lock it, you just have to wait for it to time out. And then you can go into the settings and change how long you want that to be. And then you could also connect a Bluetooth keyboard or a mouse to this, I think, and unlock it that way, but at least you always have that button that will always be there on the back to unlock it if you need to. Okay, I think I've covered everything. That's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you make your own, and see you later. There you have it. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, maybe consider subscribing to this channel, Curiosityness, because I create helpful videos like this regularly. Like I just made a video sharing the best birthday freebies. I signed up for 76 birthday free dinners and desserts and all that kind of stuff, and went through them all and shared the top 9 that are kind of actually worth your time. So you can check that video out right up here if you're interested in seeing that. And I also have a podcast called Curiosityness where I interview interesting people who share fun topics and have good stories to tell. Like recently I talked to a Bigfoot expert and we just talked for an hour about finding Bigfoot, what we would need to find to actually prove him and stuff like that. So it was a really fun, interesting conversation. You can check that one out by clicking up here if you'd like to. That's all I have to say. Thanks for watching to the end.